This is Dr. Gregory Jenkins here with Dr. Judith Curts, and we have a guest today. Her name is Miss Alicia Dukoff, and she's a therapist in the community, and I've known her for over 20 years, has it been? 10
Hey,
years?
Doc. Yeah, since I was 6.
A long time ago, a very long time ago. And I don't remember that far back.
I didn't know you were practicing when you were 12.
That's right. But
he's never changed.
Yeah, Alicia has some fantastic information to give to you about relationships, sex therapy, and
really what it is to be human.
And anxiety. So she has some new techniques without drugs that can treat these things. So I'm going to turn it right over to Alicia. So I forgot to tell you, is you can call in. You can call 298-5487. That's here at AM 1220 KHTS in downtown Newhall. We take questions. Just call in, and one of us will answer it for you. So please give us a call. I'm going to turn it over to Alicia, and let's see what we have here.
Okay, well, so first of all...
Alicia, welcome.
Thank you.
So happy to have you here. I want to hear everything you have to say. So tell us everything.
And go.
And tell us about your practice. I'd like to hear about that. Where you are, what you do.
Okay, so I am currently at the end of my 3,000 hours of my internship as a marriage and family therapist. So I'm going on the brink of licensure in the next few months after I take the clinical exam, which is kind of like the bar for lawyers.
Yes.
I'm in my doctorate right now, so I'm going to be getting the doctorate in clinical psych probably in the next year and a half, 2 years, depending on when the dissertation's finished. So it will be Dr. Dukoff shortly thereafter, the licensure.
Perfect.
That will be so good. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, basically during school, prior to those internship hours, when you're learning about everything in your master's and then you start the internship, those 3,000 hours don't happen overnight. This is years of work. You remember, I'm sure.
It takes a long time,
right.
A lot of work and supervision and all of that.
And through that process, you learn who your population is, basically. You learn who you don't want to work with, the kind of people that you feel most comfortable working with, and the kind of, maybe the age range, the clientele in general. And through that process, I found the areas that I felt most comfortable and kind of came to me naturally was in couples work, relationship therapy, and also individuals, adult individuals, what kind of issues an individual living in the world today, which is completely chaotic and so easy to get under our skin, lives with on a daily basis as far as anxiety, depression, how to combat those things inside of yourself, how to not allow that outside world to infiltrate our inside sacred space. And so from those kind of areas, with the individual work, with the couples work, which I absolutely adore, love working with the couples, love working with families, the dynamics are amazing. From there, I was able to start to practice the techniques that currently exist in the field, narrative therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and allow myself to branch out and open up into other streams of thought that were not necessarily psychologically related, things from religious backgrounds, things from different doctrines and philosophies, a lot of Zen, a lot of Buddhism, which is a philosophy, not a religion.
Correct.
So the mindfulness techniques really began to bridge this gap for me between what was originally a scientific field and is now becoming a much more humanistic, holistic sort of experience when you go in and really want to be delved into. On top of that, I am not the kind of therapist I find myself being, I found during my internships, where it used to be such a thing that the therapist was sort of above the client. They'd look at the client as, with this veil between them saying,
that was Freud.
Okay, right? That was Freud.
Did that. Yes.
Exactly. And back in the 50s, I think the humanistic approach began, and that's really that collaboration. This is really the heart and soul of what I do. The collaboration between the two of us as human beings. You come into my office, you are a human being, I'm a human being, we all have our stuff to deal with, and here are some things I can help you deal with your stuff with that I have figured out so far. And guess what? Even if I figured it out, doesn't mean that every day I'm sitting on top of a mountain humming like a monk. I mean, we have life around us that happens, and so you're gonna get rocked. How do you get yourself back into that theoretical boat and keep yourself stable? And that's what I help people do. So
I think it sounds wonderful. Let me ask you a question. You talked about how you love working with couples, and it is fun. It can be just
It's really fun. Yeah, definitely.
One thing I've learned is when somebody says why they're there, it's always something else.
Absolutely.
It's not the presenting problem. So,
Absolutely. And I usually tell them that as well. That's one of the
You
first
have to
things
be
I say.
honest.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, I'm just really glad to hear that was the presenting problem you guys came in with, and now we're going to have a little journey to figure out why you're really here.
Why you're
And,
really.
you know.
Tell me, what are the presenting problems that you're seeing with couples today? I think people would like to know that.
Right. So I think across the board, there's probably nothing new as far as any new couples out there versus old ones that are 90 years old and have been married for 60-something years. Communication. It's really the number one thing.
That's it.
If you can communicate with your partner what's going on inside of you, which means you first have to communicate properly with yourself, which is also what therapy is all about, then you will be able to speak your truth. You're going to be able to look at the other person, into the other person, by first looking into yourself and being able to decipher what that truth is. It doesn't mean you're not perfect. They're not perfect. And things should be messy because that's how you get to sort things out and make things clear. So for me, I know that that's the number one thing of any successful couple I've ever known, including my parents who have been married for almost 40 years so far. I watched them, and my childhood wasn't quiet. My God, there were fights, But it's not like knock down, throw out fights. It's communication. And being able to express yourself in such a way that allows for the two people to eventually sit down and hear each other, sometimes with that third party present, being a real help, because we have our subjective truths. My truth is my truth, and your truth is your truth, and we are both totally validated in our truths, and we can justify our truths till the cows come home, and usually do. And so when it's between just two people, you're not really getting past your own subjective reality to see the bigger picture, or to see that there is a third entity in the room between you, which is the subjective and objective truth that you both can form together.
You know what I'm seeing with couples? I mean, this is simplistic, but I think it's a real issue today, and it's one of my soapbox things that I'm always jumping on my soapbox about. Devices. Put your devices down.
And there was just,
And
yeah.
you talked about communication. How can you communicate when you come in from work, you're with the kids, and you're
Right.
always texting or watching TV? So
Right,
how
and
do
there was
you
just
handle that?
there was just an article in Psychology Today
Yes.
about that, and it's sitting on my nightstand.
It was
actually.
called the Menage a Trois.
Exactly, the Menage a Trois, which is basically another radio talk that we might have some other time.
We can do it
Docs.
today.
But
How long is your show?
you have to, if you look at it way back, that theory about talking goes way back. Even, do you remember with the musical The King and I?
Yeah.
The tune Happy Talk, Happy Talk. You have to have happy talk. You have to be happy together.
Right.
And that's so simplistic, but
But
that's the
happy
way
is
I am.
also a subjective term.
Well, I think people know when they're happy.
That is true. And that's why it's subjective. That's the happy that you're talking about. It's a concept, right? But what makes you happy is not necessarily what's going to make me happy.
It's always been
And so if we were a couple, Dr. Jenkins, that you're trying to make me happy, right? You want to make me happy as a person. But that's going to come through your filter of what makes you happy. To love somebody, to understand them, to want to communicate with them on different levels besides what's coming out of our mouths. You want to be able to inherently understand what makes them happy and ask what makes them happy. And hopefully both people are introspective enough, and maybe they're doing good work in therapy, where they can come to their own truths about what is going to make them happy from their partner, and also first from ourselves. Happiness really relies on you being able to make yourself whole and not expect that from the other person. And that is really, in answer to your question, the biggest problem I see coming in couples work.
You mean they don't complete you?
Right.
The old thing,
Yeah.
he completes me, she completes me.
You complete
You gotta
yourself.
be your own complete, right?
You complete yourself. Absolutely. That's like the biggest. Communication is the number one thing to work on in couples therapy, but the number one reason people come in, and this is true of so many, even if you're working on these great techniques, is that we expect naturally that the person we fall in love with is going to somehow understand exactly what we need every day that we need it, every moment that we need it. And you should be doing these things because you should know me well enough by now. You should be working to make me happy.
Should read
that word happy, right?
Right.
But you don't even know your own mind most of the time when you say that.
That's true.
So when you get inside yourself, and this is really the body of my work, this is what my whole through line is for what I do. It's being able to find yourself first. It's easy enough to sit here and say, oh, be whole. Be whole in yourself, and you're going to be whole in your relationship. But being whole is a process, and it doesn't happen overnight, and it takes a lot of work.
It's a lifetime process.
Yes,
If
which
you
makes it
continue
worthwhile.
to work, yeah.
Yeah, that's what makes it so juicy. That's what makes it so great.
Isn't it fun? Yeah.
I love it.
You were talking about what makes one person happy and the other person. There's a great book, and I'm sure you know it, called The 5 Love Languages.
Yes,
Isn't that
exactly.
not
That's helped a
recommending
lot of people.
books, but I think it's a great book.
It's helped a lot of couples.
Who wrote it? I've forgotten.
I forgot the name,
Yeah,
too.
me too. I'll remember some.
We all know the
sometime.
5 love languages, though.
5 love languages.
These couples that I see currently, quite a few of them have read that book on their own.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend a few books when I'm doing my sessions, and it's usually like the 4 Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz, and different things that pop up occasionally that I find are great, just additions to the work as supplemental things that they go home and reread, because I also give homework. But the 5 love languages, I think that's helped a lot of people, because really it allows us to categorize ourselves into these basic ways that we feel most communicated with by our partner. So again, going back to if Dr. Jenkins and I were in this couple together and you wanted to make me happy and I wanted to make you happy, but somehow that's just not working. We have this friction between us and you don't feel like I understand you, and we're not able to communicate because, why aren't you understanding what I need?
Because he brings you flowers every day. Why aren't you happy with that?
Exactly. So
and you need what?
I need communication. So I might need one of my love languages might be quality time, sitting down, looking into each other's eyes and communicating that way. Whereas maybe Dr. Jenkins feels that if he brings me flowers, which is gifts, that's one of the 5 love languages, gifts, and maybe cuddling, affection, like physical contact is enough for him, that's great. I'm not taking away that happiness for him is not worthy. That's beautiful. We all need affection. We all need physical contact. And yes, we all need flowers.
We all need
I love flowers.
Me
I buy
too.
them for myself sometimes. I love them. And yes, ladies, buy them for yourselves. It makes your day. It's beautiful.
Makes
you
yourself
smile.
happy.
Make yourself happy. And that's what we're going to talk about today, how to make ourselves happy, how to get inside, how to do that. But basically with Dr. Jenkins, if you bring home the flowers and you want the physical contact, there's nothing wrong with that. But if your spouse, if your girlfriend, if your partner is saying to you, we never spend any quality time together. You really don't care about what I need, what I want. You don't think about what my needs are. And you're thinking to yourself, scratching your head, well, gee, I thought about her when I got the flowers. The one thing that's missing is the communication between you to actually solidify, here are my wants, here are your wants, and now how do we meet in the middle? And that, folks, that's not just called marriage. That's called partnership. That's partnership. That's being in your own little universe that you have, because we all have these subjective little universes we're in. We're all little microcosms of our own universe in there. And boy, do we get lost in our microcosms. Boy, do we get lost in the cosmos in ourselves. But to be able to look out at the other person who's their own universe over there and try to meet on some planet in the middle, that is the work. That is why sometimes therapy is just that perfect solution, because you've got that third party present that goes, hey guys, you're from Mars, you're from Venus, now let's both meet on Neptune. Let's find a new planet to sail through and sail to. So it's just the idea.
As a scientist, I'm always looking for ways to test for things. And I'm trying to develop a test that tells you if you're happy or not. And guess what? There's no test for it. Therapists are the ones that help people, not a physician not a scientist like myself. There's not a blood test for it. There's nothing that can do to make you a pill that I can give you to make you happy. You have to make yourself happy.
So here's where I can go with that, like directly, which is amazing. There's been a few books written since this particular one, but there was a book written about 10 years ago about how many thoughts we have going on in our brains every single day. And of these millions and millions and millions of thoughts that we don't even realize are shooting through our neurological impasses in our brains, synapses, right, exactly, sorry. So we have like millions and millions of these thoughts. Of these millions, about 70-something% of them are negative. Okay, they're negative thoughts. They're thoughts that weigh you down. They're thoughts that make you feel like crap. They're thoughts that tell you that you look bad that day. They're thoughts that tell you that you're not good enough. They tell you that, you're not going to make it. Why even bother?
How do you quiet the thoughts?
Right? Of those millions and millions of thoughts, the greater percentage are negative. So what is the other percentage? They're in there. They're positive. But we got to look for them. So I have this metaphor that I've used for that to help people start to understand why is it that we are unhappy generally, and how can you make yourself happy? Well, let's start with our own thoughts. First of all, the negative thoughts are like fireworks. They're loud. They're in your face. They are so freaking present every day. You wake up and it's like what you hear, right? Because there are so many of them. The positive thoughts are like the sunrise. They're really quiet and they're very present, but it takes that much more work to sit and listen for them, especially amidst this show of the fireworks going on in your head all the time. Now, the fireworks are a quick, cheap thrill, okay? Some of these negative thoughts, they might seem yummy in the moment because it feels good sometimes to be angry, doesn't it? And that guy cuts us off on the road and we're like, oh my God, and you have this explosion. It feels good. Okay, there's nothing wrong with anger, like in the right place and time.
Anger's energy.
It's energy, and it can be like actually flowing in some kind of positive direction if you're aware enough of yourself to know how to do that. Otherwise, you're going to spiral off and you're going to create a forest fire.
You're going to create some problems in your relationship and how you feel about yourself, aren't you?
Absolutely, because
Perfect.
if you can't contain it or control it because you don't even know what it is,
right,
then, you're just causing a wildfire somewhere.
How would you suggest, or what techniques do you use to quiet the negativity, to quiet the I call it the noise in your head. It's just noise, and to listen to the good things. What techniques do you recommend?
Okay, so first, just starting with the concept that we all have all of these negative thoughts that are more overpowering than the positive, and I use a lot of visuals in my work. Okay, I use a lot of metaphor. So just in the fireworks versus the sunrise alone, did you guys both see that? And did you see you can actually attach to those visuals in your mind?
I went to the sunrise. Where'd you go?
I didn't know it was going to be a metaphor.
Everything.
You're being tested.
I'm looking for that test, that blood test. I'll tell us.
Yeah,
See, the scientist over here. I love it. Well, all of this is actually very empirically validated stuff. I'm just adding other techniques that are more mindful based. And so here's what you're going to love, Dr. Jenkins. Left and right side of the brain. Okay, so we'll get there in a second, but tune in for that, Mr. Scientist.
I'm ready.
Okay. So in answer to your question, how I start is just first telling people that there are all those negative thoughts versus the positive ones that are going on inside of you all the time. To just start to be aware that you have a choice as to which ones to focus on is the most important starting place. You have a choice. We all have a choice. It's called free will. We can choose where we put our energy inside ourselves. So you wake up in the morning, you've got that devil on your shoulder saying, you're not going to make it today. You're worthless. You're overweight. You look like crap in the mirror. What are you even doing getting out of bed? And you've also got a thought in there, guys, that's going, you're so beautiful. Gosh, look at that sunrise this morning. Do you hear the birds singing outside? I'm so lucky that I have a roof over my head. And wow, there's running water that I'm showering in right now. What a blessing. All those thoughts are there too. But we have to focus on them. And so how do we do that, right? How do we choose? How do we actually slow down enough to choose which thoughts are going to be focused on?
And you know what? I think that's a great question to leave everybody with, because we have to go to break. So we're going to leave you hanging.
Food for thought.
Food for thought. And you're listening to KHTS 1220 on your dial. And call us at 298-5487 if you want to talk to Alicia and find out how to quiet those negative thoughts.
There is a process.